Welcome, SENS Talk.
Russell winds in, feeds it back across the strike, and scores! Brady Tkachuk makes it 2-0. Giroux, hit along, scores!
Tim Stutzlock cross, Tkachuk score! The captain, Brady Tkachuk, buries it with 1:18 to go.
See you later. Go, SENS, go. Welcome back to SENS Talk. My name is Brandon Plant, and I am your host. I say welcome back because a few hours ago, the Ottawa Senators made a huge trade with the Washington Capitals for Nick Jensen. Jacob Chychrun went back the other way. If you want my full thoughts and full analysis on that trade, and you want to know what you should expect from Nick Jensen going into next year with Ottawa, and if you're a Washington fan for whatever reason watching this, you want to know what Jacob Chychrun is going to bring to you, make sure to check out that video. It's the last one I posted literally just a few hours ago. Bear with me as I get through this video. My voice is spent. I can feel it already. I've been talking for like hours straight here doing videos, so bear with me as I get through this. So yeah, let's get into the free agency recap for day number 1 for your Ottawa Senators. Steve Staios just finished speaking to the media, which is why this video likely will be out just a little bit later than I normally put it out, probably 6:30ish, 7ish maybe. But we got a couple of key quotes from that, so it was worth it. But before we get into the quotes and the players we signed, and there's a few nice players we signed, I want to talk about really the first big news story of the day, which wasn't the trade, actually, surprisingly. It was a potential trade request, which has been refuted since, but you probably know what I'm talking about. It's the Shane Pinto contract situation. And, you know, he was qualified yesterday. He's an RFA, so he can't just walk as a UFA. He's an RFA, so the Sens still control in that aspect. But at the same time, he is also able to receive offer sheets from other clubs. The Sens, of course, could match those offer sheets, but nonetheless, that means the Sens could potentially lose Shane Pinto, which, of course, for Sens fans like myself, is a disaster scenario. Now, Steve Staios today in his press conference refuted these, frankly, nonsensical rumors and said there has been no trade request whatsoever, which is not too shocking to me because I think Shane Pinto knows that the Ottawa Senators view him as a key piece moving forward. I mean, they keep on saying that Shane Pinto is a part of the core, and I tweeted this out. If he's a part of your core, sign the guy, sign the guy, sign the guy. But, you know, at the same time, Steve Staios is dealing with a really, really tough agent. The agent for Shane Pinto is the same agent that William Nylander had during his contract holdout with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that probably explains the trade request nonsense. That probably explains all this negotiation through the media we're seeing. One media member says one thing, the other says another. You can believe whatever you want. What I believe very simply is they cannot agree on a contract right now, and the agent's trying to force the general manager, Steve Staios' hand, considering the fact that does not have much leverage in the situation as an RFA. And what I'm trying to say here is this goes two ways. Either they sign him long-term or to a bridge, whatever works for Pinto's camp and the Sens org, or, and this is a scary situation to even think of, he's not going to request a trade. He might just sit out. And that is certainly a possibility. So we'll see what happens with that. That's something to keep an eye on throughout the summer. I'll tell you one thing, though. He's not being traded. He's not being traded. As of right now, I see no reason to believe that that's going to be the case. This is just the case of an agent, you know, pestering and doing his job. He's trying to get the best potential contract for his client. We'll see what happens. Hopefully they can come to an agreement that works for both sides. Now, there's also been rumors, you know, about the fact that he might get offer sheeted. I don't see this happening. Bruce Garriock said himself the Sens would just match any offer sheet. But it's been said, according to Bruce Garriock, that Shane Pinto's camp wants an offer sheet to kind of force the Sens' hand into, you know, signing him to a higher AAV that they obviously don't want to sign him to. So we'll see what happens with that. I still remain in the belief that there's not going to be an offer sheet, and this is just going to work itself out. This is just a tough agent battling out with GM. So we'll see what happens. But once again, if an offer sheet happens, the Sens will counter it for sure. Unless it's like $6+ million, then I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't. But I think we need to save that for another video. We'll see how that continues on. But once again, don't really see that happening. I think at the end of the day, this is just tough negotiations, and it should work out. Now, speaking of agreements that work for both sides, here is David Perron. Welcome to Ottawa, David Perron. This guy is a hockey legend, in my opinion. This is a guy that's been around the league for a very, very long time, and this is a very good signing. It's a 2-year deal worth $4 million per year, which is a little higher than I think you and I would probably expect, but this is free agency. This is a guy with a lot of experience and skill, so of course, he's going to command a little bit more than you would probably want to give. Once again, this is free agency. Nothing is cheap. So $4 million per year for 2 years with a modified 15-team no-trade list as well. That's being reported by Bruce Garriock. So the 15-team no-trade list, I mean, whatever. I don't really see the deal with that. I've seen some people have an issue with that. If that's what makes him want to stay here, or sign here, I should say, and that's the difference between him coming and not coming, and if he's the guy that Steve Stais and the group wants to bring in, then give him the damn no movement clause, whatever. That's enough about his contract. Let's get into the player itself. So David Perron is a left winger, 36 years old, going into next year. Last year with the Detroit Red Wings, and we're going to talk about last year with Detroit in a second here. You might know what I'm talking about. Last year in 76 games with the Detroit Red Wings, he scored 17 goals, 7 of which were on the power play, 30 assists, 10 of which were on the power play for 47 total points, 17 of which were on the power play. In his entire NHL career, like I said, this is a guy with a lot of experience, frankly a legend. 1,131 games played, 310 goals, 458 assists for 768 points. He's also a Cup champion, winning it with the St. Louis Blues just a few years ago. And really, he brings necessary leadership and middle six scoring to the Ottawa Senators, and immediately, in my opinion, will fill that hole at the left wing 2 position. So this is a nice signing for the Ottawa Senators for, like I just said, he brings that experience. He's a veteran as well. He has that cup-winning pedigree. And this is a guy that has been around the league for some time. And this is a guy that can still contribute. He can help out on that probably, I would say, second-wave power play, which didn't do so great last year. Once again, and I'm going to get into this with the other signings and this signing too, Ottawa, other than the core guys like Tkachuk and Stützle and Batherson, didn't really get a lot of supplemental scoring. David Perron is going to be one of those supplemental guys that's not part of the core, but can bring, 20, 25 goals potentially in that top 6. And that's exactly what Ottawa needs. Now, is he going to score 25? That's on the high end. 15 to 20 goals is what you definitely can get from David Perron. I think, though, with the skill that we have in that top 6 and the power play opportunities that he should get, 20 to 25 is probably a close range of what you should expect from David Perron next year. And you know what? Let's just jump into the elephant in the room. We all know what happened last year between Ottawa and Detroit. David Perron attacked Artem Zub, cross-checked him in the head. It was a whole scandal. He got suspended for 6 games. And Michael Andlauer, the Sens owner, had a funny moment, apparently, according to Steve Stais, who said in the press conference today regarding the incident and the situation between David Perron and Artem Zub and whether or not, they spoke to David Perron about that incident before signing him. Steve Stais said this: only after the fact that when Michael Andlauer texted me that we should probably put Perron and Zub in stalls next to each other to sort it out. So, gotta love Mikey A with the jokes. In all honesty, I would assume David Perron might buy, Zub a steak dinner or something. I don't know. These things usually work themselves out. Once again, not a guarantee, but I don't think the Sens would sign a guy who they say is a great leader and a veteran and a good character guy and then have him create havoc in the locker room. Clearly, this is not going to be an issue, but clearly it's something that should be brought up because it's pretty ironic to say the least. Now, in terms of David Perron and some points of concern, I mentioned the power play stats at the beginning because he will rely on the power play to keep up those point totals. 30 points on 5-on-5 is fine, but, if you're a second-line winger, you're going to want more from that. So definitely expect the power play to help boost his numbers. His plus-minus as well, and I hate talking about plus-minus. I think it's one of the most useless stats in the league. But it does help for circumstances like this where he was a minus 12, was one of the worst on the Detroit Red Wings. And I bring this up because, once again, I think plus-minus is a useless stat, but it does show that David Perron, who has been noted to be a much slower skater the last couple of years, his skating has certainly taken a dip. That's certainly why his plus-minus is one of the worst on the Detroit Red Wings, right? So that is something to also keep in mind. He's not the best skater anymore, still a fine skater. This is a guy that's been in the league forever, but he's certainly slower than he used to be. So he's a guy that is a smart enough hockey player to get into the right spaces, so it shouldn't affect his offensive production too much, but in terms of his two-way game and defensive abilities, that will hurt for sure. But he also can throw around the body, so that might help him a little bit. He was 6 on Detroit last year for hits with 111. his second most hits in a single year, so maybe he's trying to bring more of a physical edge to his game as well. But he absolutely, whether he's on the second or third line, will be a middle six winger who primarily, in my opinion, will play on the left wing, second position, and will get power play minutes as well. He brings much needed supplemental scoring for the core, regardless of his skating concerns and his speed concerns, because that skill is legit. And with that skill, with the skilled players, he's going to be around as a supplemental player, as a boost when they're not performing. He can step in. With all that skill, I think this is going to be a nice signing, especially for 2 years. Not a lot of risk. And once again, Ottawa desperately needed a legitimate middle six, or dare I say, second line left winger, which Perron appears to be, going into next year. They desperately needed it, and they got it. So Ottawa won't have to only rely on the core players now. They can rely on guys like David Perron and SENS legend Michael Amadio, who comes back to the nation's capital. Michael Amadio is another player that the Ottawa Senators can rely on to bring supplemental depth scoring. The center is 28 years old and signed a 3-year deal at $2.6 million per year. Now, I saw a lot of people very critical of this signing, not because they don't like the player. They thought the AAV was a little high and the term was a little high as well. Disagree on both fronts. He's hitting the prime of his career, 28 years old. The next 3 years should be the best hockey he ever plays. $2.6 million for, frankly, your third line winger who provides scoring ability and penalty kill abilities and power play ability, and he can really play anywhere. It's a Swiss Army knife. Is a hell of a deal, particularly in free agency when money's being thrown around left, right, and center. So love this signing. It's great to see a SENS legend return, which does not happen enough, I'll be honest with you. So that's really cool. And for Vegas, he's been a very, very valuable player. Last year in 73 games, he had 14 goals, 13 assists for 27 points, 5 on the power play, 3 of which were goals, and a 51% face-off rate. So this is a guy that might play on the wing. He might play down the middle. He can really play wherever you want him to play. I don't see him as a fourth line guy. I can see him on that third line, especially if you trade Matthew Joseph. But he could definitely be a fourth line center. And if he is that fourth line center, my goodness, he might be one of the best fourth line centers in the National Hockey League. Once again, I doubt it. I think he will be on that third line, but we shall see. In his entire NHL career, he's played in 369 games, scoring 57 goals, 55 assists for 112 points. Just like David Perron, by the way, this is another cup winner, so bringing some cup pedigree to the lineup as well. But as I kind of just alluded to, Michael Amadio is a great player for a team like Ottawa with some holes and concerns in their middle six. On the second and third line it's very in flux right now. Let's just say that, because this is a guy, he can play on your second, he can play on your third, as I just said, he can play on your fourth as well, can play in all situations, in all positions, can play on the power play, can play on the penalty kill, which is likely where he will be. He's strong in both ends is what I'm trying to say. He's a very, very well-rounded player, an energy guy who will bring it every single shift. He averaged a point every 2 games in the playoffs in his entire career as well. So a clutch player as well. He will perform and come clutch in the key moments and the pivotal moments of your season. So this is a guy that, once again, the last couple of years in Vegas has really, really impressed. Ever since leaving Ottawa, frankly, has really impressed. But more so, this is a guy that really excites me because I really, really wanted Ottawa to sign a third line, or let's just call it bottom six, middle six, a third line guy who can score 15 or so goals, who's strong defensively as well, and can play on the penalty kill. A lot of teams have a guy like that. The Ottawa Senators have not for some time. So this is a guy that, I'm not going to compare him to Zach Smith, but if you want to compare him to a guy that you're probably very familiar with, Zach Smith, in that 15-goal season, expect 15 goals from Michael Amadio, playing penalty kill time, rugged style of play, strong player on both ends. Very, very, very good depth signing at a very cheap AAV as well. Once again, Ottawa, their bottom six, does not produce any offense. Michael Amadio is about to bring a huge boost to the bottom six for sure, particularly with that offensive ability. And as well, unlike Perron, Michael Amadio actually has some very good speed. He's a very, very quick and agile skater. So the Sens are really emphasizing speed in their bottom six, as you're going to see with the next signing they made as well. So really, really love this signing. Welcome to Ottawa, or welcome back, I should say, Michael Amadio. And once again, having a guy that can play throughout your lineup on the penalty kill as a winger, as a center, you name it, he can do it. so valuable, especially if the Ottawa Senators are going to be competitive next year. So love that signing. I think that's going to be one of the sneaky signings that happens every free agency. That's a very, very good value signing for the Ottawa Senators. Now, the next signing they made is Noah Gregor. Gregor is a 25-year-old winger who they signed to a 1-year, $850,000 deal. He's essentially replacing Parker Kelly. Last year with the Toronto Maple Leafs in 63 games, he scored 6 goals and 12 points in total, of course 6 assists, with 1 power play goal and 1 shorthanded goal as well. In his entire NHL career, 241 games for 32 goals, 31 assists for 63 points. Yeah, the offense isn't great, but you're not getting Noah Gregor for offensive abilities. Yeah, he could chip in here and there like any fourth liner could, but you're getting him for that defensive game. In Toronto, 70% of the time when he started in a zone, it was in the defensive zone. So Toronto trusted him with defensive play, and Toronto, they're, I hate to say it, a good team. So the fact that the Toronto Maple Leafs trusted this guy in the defensive zone to defend with the lead or just to keep the puck out of their own net, regardless of what the score was, is a good sign of what to expect from Noah Gregor and what kind of role he's going to have with the Ottawa Senators. Once again, this is a guy that's a very, very good skater, just like Michael Amadio. Very, very speedy. He's a physical guy as well, but once again, pure defensive player. So, yeah, he'll chip in the odd goal here and there, but you're not getting a goal scorer, Noah Gregor. You're getting a 200-foot guy that is very strong in his own defensive zone. Very, very good speed. So he's a threat offensively, I guess, on the penalty kill. But speaking of the penalty kill, a guy that's going to immensely help the penalty kill with Michael Amadio and others to help improve what has been, frankly, a very lackluster unit as of late. And Steve Staios directly addressed, Parker Kelly leaving, being released. He's a UFA right now, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And basically said, yeah, he replaced Parker Kelly with Noah Gregor. He likes Parker Kelly, but he said, and I quote, this is Steve Staios, I think with Noah Gregor, he has a different element compared to Parker Kelly with his speed. So clearly the Ottawa Senators and Steve Staios are targeting speed in the bottom 6, which is the right approach. A few years ago, they were really, really speedy. So having a guy like Gregor and Amadio with speed and, like with Amadio, offensive ability, hopefully we keep Joseph there as well, because that's going to be a very, very fast bottom 6. Because once again, we had physical guys in the bottom 6, but that was it. That was literally all the bottom 6 can contribute, was physical abilities. They had no offense. They didn't have much speed. Now the bottom 6 has a good blend of speed, offensive ability, and physicality. So it's much, much, much more well-rounded. Now, I'll just recap a couple of minor league signings for the Belleville Senators today. Firstly, Garrett Perron has returned. Welcome back, SENS legend, or B-SENS legend, I should say. Garrett Perron, he returns on a 2-year deal, 2-way deal as well. Was a key veteran for Belleville last year. Of course, scored that huge series winner in overtime against the Toronto Marlies to send them off to round number 2. That's a key veteran for Belleville, one of their top point producers as well. So welcome back to Garrett Perron. And they also signed defender Jeremy Davies. He signed a 1-year deal worth a few $100,000 in the AHL. In his entire career, he's played nearly 300 AHL games and has also played just under 25 total NHL games in his entire career. And look, it really never hurts to have depth throughout your organization, especially depth with, some NHL experience. So good pickup for Belleville for sure. And he's actually an offensive guy. Last year, 35 points, 12 goals in 66 AHL games with the Rochester Americans. So frankly, a decent signing for Belleville. That's a guy that will replace, like the exits of like Jacob Larson, others, for example. So nice signing for sure. So welcome to Ottawa, Jeremy Davies, or welcome to Belleville, I should say, and welcome back, Garrett Perron, as well. So if you want to take a look at the entire free agency before I get to the RFAs that we released in Erik Brannstrom and Parker Kelly, basically got rid of guys like Mark Kaslik, Erik Brannstrom, and Parker Kelly, and got improvements in David Perron, Michael Amadio, Noah Gregor, and of course through the trade, Nick Jensen. So a pretty effective opening day of free agency for the Ottawa Senators, for sure, no doubt about it. And once again, the team certainly got better today. You can have your opinions on the signings, but there's no doubt in my mind the Ottawa Senators today got much better. So yeah, with that, last thing I'll mention, 2 RFAs that were not qualified yesterday were Parker Kelly and Erik Brannstrom. Both should sign somewhere in the National Hockey League, I would assume, on 1-year deals. Parker Kelly, for any team, is a very good penalty kill guy with energy. And Erik Brannstrom, given the chance, could be a good puck mover for your second pairing, potentially, and as well in the power play. So I wish them nothing but the best. It's unfortunate that it did not work out here in Ottawa, but I am very confident that they will find spots somewhere else in the National. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. A lot to cover today, a lot of signings. So let me know what you think. What was your favorite signing today? In my opinion, my favorite was Michael Amadio. I'm a fan of Perron and I'm a fan of Gregor, but my favorite signing is Amadio for sure, because he has that versatility that you really need to be successful. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be players that are underperforming. There's going to be, you're just going to want to switch it up sometimes. And Amadio is that guy that you can use in those situations. So that really, really excites me. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And with that, I'll probably take a couple days off if there's no news, because this voice needs some rest. So besides that, thank you all for watching. I'll see you all soon. Go Sens, go.